Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Samantha Mirbaum with Melco's application team, and this is our Design Shop Talk. We do this on a weekly basis to answer whatever questions you might have. Give me a moment to get both Facebook and YouTube up so I can see whatever questions you guys have. Be sure to type them in on the live feeds. And there's YouTube, and let me get Facebook's up. There's the live. Maybe. Hello. There it is. Okay, so it looks like I've got both Facebook and YouTube up to be able to see your questions. So again, you can email applications@melco.com. You can type them in on these live feeds and we'll get them answered as we talk today. So let's see what questions. I'll start off with a quick little demo on a few new features. I know I quickly covered these last week, but what I wanted to do is quick to show you a little project, if you will, with both the stippling and the primer stitch. Okay, so let's go over to DesignShop, and what we're going to do is kind of like a reverse monogram. So I'm going to come over here to the automatic what is this? Automatic custom shape input tool. And under custom designs, you can see there's a lot of choices here. I'm going to come down to the Monogram Decorations. So have you ever seen those designs that have, like when you sew them out, it's stippling on a towel? The monogram itself is the fur from the blanket or the towel, and the stitching is just sewing it down around to make it stand out. So that's what we're going to create our own. Okay. Good morning, Peggy in Texas. All right, so let's see. Why don't we take, let's say this one. So these custom shapes, I'm just using them for the shapes. So let's say I'm going to put a letter M in the middle of this one, let's say. Okay, so you find the one you like, left click on it and drag it over. So that's all I did to get it onto my screen. I'll close that for the moment, and let's go ahead and scale it up. If you hold your shift key down as you're scaling, it locks proportions. Okay, so shift, left click and drag. There we go. All right, so maybe we want that to be exactly 4 inches wide. So why don't I just type in the number down here? All right, so now I have a frame. Well, what if I want to use that for my stipple? So what I'm going to do is come over here and generate a primer stitch. Yes, I'm using V11. Okay. Ja and Beth, good morning. So I'm going to come over here and under backup, since I just did it. I'm going to object, generate basting or primer. Okay, I'm going to change that over to primer stitch, set the offset to 0, and say OK. All right, and I'm just going to turn this guy off. So now you see I've got a complex fill. I don't need both of these because I'm not using this as a primer, so I'm just going to delete one of them. And let's leave it like that for the moment. So now I'm going to go create a letter, and again scale it up. And rather than moving this around to center it, if you haven't tried this feature, select them both. So you can either do that by drawing a big box around it like I did here, or you can click one, hold control, click the other. But you'll see up here I've got these kind of alignment features. I can align it horizontally and vertically, and now it's aligned. Well, I want to cut this shape out of my fill. So select the fill. So I left click on that, hold my control key down, select the next one, and right here is subtract elements. I'm going to click on subtract element, and now you'll see I've got a shape with a hole in it. Well, I want that to be the stippling, right? So instead of just straight lines like this, so I'm going to change the stitch type over to stippling, and poof. Now what if you want that to outline it so that you can see the M a little better? Okay, well again I'm going to take the shape that already has the hole in it, and you can right click, go to operations, change element type, and I'm going to say a walk bean stitch, and I'm going to add it. So now I've got a bean stitch added around there. Okay, let's see. Somebody, I'm going to do one more of these so you can see it, but let's see. Good morning from Raleigh. Hi, Robert. You have a question about sizing for monograms. I see there are suggested minimum maximum sizes, but you have someone who wants it really large, like 9 or 10 inches. Can you scale it up? And if so, what should you be concerned about? So those are suggestions. So what he's asking about is here on these code sheets. right? So when you have these code sheets, you'll see there's a right here, there's a suggested minimum and maximum height. So those are the ranges that it's known to sew well, that it was designed for, to go that small, to go that large. Now, you can make them larger and smaller, in fact. Just, you got to double check stuff. So I routinely make them way larger and way smaller. But the things I always look out for is the stitch type, particularly when you make things very large. It's going to start doing random fills and other stuff. So you might want to put a pattern on the fill, or adjust the fill stitching somewhat. Sometimes when you scale them up really large, some of the outlines, the wireframes themselves look a little bit strange. So if that's the case, you can always modify it by what's it called? Right click on it and editing wireframe. So if you have like a curve or something that you want to straighten it out, you can always modify the wireframe, particularly when you get large. And then make sure you have appropriate underlays and whatnot, especially if you're going large. So those are kind of the main things. With monograms, you're doing single type letters, a few letters at a time, so you don't really have to worry as much about letter to letter, the pull compensation and things like that. But yeah. So yes, you can scale them up. Just double check it, run it through. Like here, you can see this one is huge and the fill is random. I don't personally like a random fill, so some people do. It's fine. It's, everyone has their own personal preferences, but I would come into the properties and adjust, the presets, pick something else, just because I like to see order in my fills. Linda, William, I'll be right back. Linda, for the graphic to embroidery assistant, yeah, Scott this past Wednesday did an entire live session on it. So if you go back, it's there. It's on YouTube and on Facebook. It was a live that was done, 2 days ago. He talked about the graphic to embroidery assistant in detail. A question was typed in on Facebook again. I have a question on the file formats. What works best besides the OFM file format? EXP, DST? Keep in mind, EXPs and DSTs do not save color information within the file. So when you open up an EXP or a DST file, it's going to look bizarre color-wise. You're going to have to color it yourself. You can also look at, what are some other ones? See, EXP, DST. If you want colors to save within it, you can use an art file. Pest, Jeff, Huss, all of those save the color information within the file itself. So I use mostly EXPs and OFMs personally. Okay. Oh, on YouTube we have some questions. Is there a good video for the differences between the DS levels? Honestly, I don't know. I will see if we can find that, if there is, and post a link to it. Okay, when adding satin borders to shapes that have sharp edges, how do you digitize these points correctly? So that was typed in on YouTube from Chris. So I actually have a question coming up on that. So let me come back to that one in just a minute. All right. Okay, so this is showing you how to use these custom shapes. Here's like another one, just to do it one more time. Left click, drag it on the screen, scale it up to whatever size you want. Object, generate primer stitch. I'm just going to set the border to 0 and then delete the shape I copied from. Why would you use those shapes? Well, I'm using them simply to avoid having to draw that shape myself. Okay, so S, why don't we make that one the melody script, the flourish. Where is it? There it is. It's pretty. Okay, and again, select to subtract shapes. You select the shape, select that you want to subtract from, select the second things holding the control key, and then click subtract elements, which is right here. Okay. So I can turn off that text and you'll see now I've got this shape. I can of course add borders, and you can do that quickly by selecting the shape, holding the shift key down and clicking on the walk input, and that adds borders. So that now that's all defined. Okay. Okay, so we did, let's see, what else do we have? All right, so let's go back to our questions. Oh, I have one more example on the primer stitch, just because I did it this week and I thought it was pretty when I sewed it. So let's go back to Design Shop. I lost it. There it is. So I got these cute little cows. Where are they? They're my cows. So I just thought this was fun. I wanted to sew this on a towel, and I didn't want the towel pokies loops sticking through on the face and the nose and on the body here. So what I did is select the design, object, generate primer, and primer stitch. I don't like it quite that large at 50 points, so let's say a 20 point offset. And there we go. Now I have a primer stitch, one click and done. So really easy and fast, and an easy way to do it. You can see it created our 2 fills, so I got a nice little crosshatch pattern through there that kind of contours around my little cows there. I thought it turned out cute. Okay, so let's go back to questions that were sent in. Here we go. So here's one related, similar to what you asked on YouTube, Chris, about these corners. How do you deal with those? All right, so this particular one is, I've got a 3.5 inch letter. I tried the auto borders, yet I've got this weird, I'm getting a lot of stitches in here, and how do I clean that up? Okay, so let's go over to Design Shop and do that. Where are my corners? There we go. Good morning, Randy and Tammy. All right, so I've got a letter here. So this is just block 2 letter that I made large. I actually made it 4.5 inches tall. And then in the properties, I turned on auto borders. Okay, enable auto borders. And then the other thing I did, I don't like super tiny borders, so I made this one 30 points. And what you'll see is right now it's got a cap end on that type corner. And that's being done through the properties. So under here, under the auto border, you'll see that you can adjust all the properties of that border itself. So right here, corners, if you turn these on, you can turn on a cap. If I turn off the cap, you'll see and leave miter. There we go. So you'll see what we have now is a miter here, which is easier to see in 3D, and maybe if I make it a color where you can actually see it. See, now I've got a miter along there. Okay, so it's really simple to adjust. Another way you can always do borders is what I did over here is I selected the letter, held my shift key down, and clicked on the single line input. Okay, that just creates a straight satin stitch, right? So here you've got to go clean it up yourself, and it's done with the same thing. You turn on your corners. So you can use auto borders, or you can create it yourself, and there you go. All right. I like the caps. The miters are also pretty. It really depends on what look you're going for as to what you want to use. Good morning, Anita and Tammy and Randy. And Scott, everyone. Randy, I will see if I can bug some folks for you and see how to help you there. No, I know they've been busy. All right, let's see, what other questions do we have? Oh, Chris, if you go to the Design Shop manual, there is a video on corners so let me go pull that up for you. So from Design Shop, if you click on the Help Topic button, that question mark, it will bring up the V11 manual. And then if you search, do Control F and search for corners. Come on. What is going on with my computer? I think I angered it. Adobe's deciding. All right. If you search for corners, where the corners are discussed in there, there's actually a whole video where Nate goes over how to digitize them manually, doing miters, caps, using fills, all the different techniques you can use for them. So if you check that out, see if that answers your questions. If not, I can do them on one of these lives as well. All right. When upgrading to V11, my icon for V10 is still on the desktop. They are two separate applications. So V10, V11 are two separate applications. So yes, you're going to have two different icons on there. V11 crashing, that's not right. So I would contact service@melco.com. Basically contact the service department, tech support, and have them look at that for you. It shouldn't do that. I've not seen that personally when I do my installs, so I don't even know what to suggest. It may just be as simple as reinstalling it. I don't know. But if you contact the service department, they'll help you out there. Okay, can you change the tie-offs on fonts that are already loaded with DS? Sometimes when I'm loading, it doesn't tie off between letters and then things come undone. Yeah. So it behaves the same way in both V11 and V10 for the most part. So I can come over here and type in, ooh, misspell my name. Let's just do that then. So if you go into properties under tie-in and tie-off of this text, so under the tie-ins and tie-offs, you can change this to always. When that's there, it will always put knots as long as your tie-in and tie-outs, as long as you have these clicked. So this is style 1, is kind of a more embedded knot. Style 5 is kind of it's an X, so it's a little more aggressive. They're both secure. It just, some font, I like a style 5 knot, but it doesn't work on all fonts, I'll be quite honest, because sometimes it's just way too aggressive. So you can see there's the style 1, and it ties it off between every one. Now the connector stitches between them, the little jump stitches, that's being driven by this number right here. Okay, the larger the number this is, the more jump stitches you're going to end up having. So these are still bigger than that. But so what that says is if the distance from where this letter ends to this letter starts is smaller than whatever number's here, it's going to do a trim. Okay. So Chris asked, is the corner feature level dependent? I believe it is. Yes. But if you check out the video that's in the manual, he shows you how to do it without using the corner tool. And again, I can do that on these as well. Morning, Juliet. All right. So I like this set somewhere between 20 and 30. I think the default is 32. But if you set it to always, it'll always do a tie in and tie out. And that way when you trim off your little things manually, you don't have things coming undone. In the same vein, can I insert a tie off in a design like I would insert a trim? So I assume you're asking about expanded files. So with expanded files, if you select the element that you want to add trims to and go into the properties and change it to always, it should add a trim at the end of it. You can always manually go add stitches to add your own trim. That takes, if you know what you're doing, it doesn't take a whole lot of work. What I mean by manually is, let's see if I can go open an expanded file to show you. Oh wait, the cows, they're expanded. Okay, so these cows are expanded. So, trying to find. So you can always come over to properties and change this to always and add a tie in and a tie off. And on the ends of that, it will update and add trims for you. So that's one way. But if you want it in the middle of an element, you're going to have to manually do that. So by selecting whatever it is you want, coming over to your input, your walk input tool, and say manual stitch input, and you'd have to add needle penetrations in the form of an X or in the same shape as your style 1 knots. Okay. All right, so let's quick scan. If you get V11, can you still use your V10 on your computer as long as it's an upgrade path? So if you're upgrading V10 to V11, yes. So you can only use one of them at a time, but you can go back and forth between them. And so yeah. So yeah, Scott answered you as well, MJ, but you can use them individually, not at the same time. All right, so we did both of those. Let's see what other questions do we have. I'm not sure if I've asked this yet, but can you add a stop for designs? Like when you get a puff design, tell it to stop at a certain point. Yeah, so those are done with color changes. So in a design, actually, let me go back here. So you would just add a color change. So right before you get to the puff, you would add a hold. So here, when you set up your colors, you'll see you've got an applique button and a hold button. If you're just doing it for puff, I'd suggest using hold. All hold does says after it shows color 1 and you have cold, and then it holds, and then it would go to color 2. Hold means when it shows color 1, the machine stops. It just waits until you go hit the green button on your keypad again. Okay, so hold just basically stops the machine so you can go add your fabric, add your puff, whatever, adjust your settings, whatever you needed to do. Applique is another option you can use. Applique stops the machine and the hoop advances out from under the needle case. So if you're doing applique files and you need to trim in the hoop, things like that, you can just have it applique out and trim it right there if you don't want to pull the hoop off the machine. So that's the difference. Hold just is a stop, a hard stop. Applique, instead of putting the word hold there, it'd have the word applique. And that's going to stop the machine, have the hoop come out from under the needle case and sit there for you until you go hit the green button, and then it pulls it back under the machine and starts sewing again. So when you set up your files, you just need to make sure you have enough color changes, right? So you would, instead of having if you had a solid color design where it's going to do borders and then put puff, you would want it as 2 colors. One for the puff, one for the stuff that's going to sew first. Okay, even if it's the same color. So like these, now this is a knockdown, but you would literally just give it 2 separate colors. That way you could program in a hold. Okay. Hopefully that helps. Let's see. If I get a thread break partway through a design, fix it, and then carry on, will it add another tie stitch when it starts? No, it won't. So that's why you want to make sure you have overlap. So you basically hit the backup key to make sure you have 1/16 eighth of an inch. I usually err on the side of too much overlap rather than not enough, and back it up, and then it will start sewing and have overlap to help avoid that. Okay. Let's see, what other questions did we get? All right, so back here. Can you figure out why they got rid of the 3D button? I know it's there, but I have to hover over it. Yeah, I know why they got rid of it. So right here is the 3D button. In V9, it used to say 3D. The reason is 3D only translates in English. And they're doing, the software is being used in all sorts of languages, so they had to come up with a universal emblem that works in all languages. So that's why it went to this versus, 3D, since that doesn't translate. Let's see, there's another question. In the OS, when I place a hold, it stops between every color change. Is it possible to just tell it where you want the hold? Yeah. I don't have that problem when I use the hold. So you're saying you put one hold in, yet it does it all the time. So how I do this routinely is when I set up my colors, let's say this is a 4-color design, I would do color 1, hold, color 2, 3, 4, and I would only get the 1 hold after color 1. So if you have a file that's doing that, maybe email it to applications.com with what it's doing. Melco at applications@melco.com. There we go. And maybe we can look at it and see if that's something different. Or, like I said, I don't see that personally on my machines. So when I use hold or applique, it only stops where I put that hold or that applique step. Okay. Can you still load designs directly from your machine, or do you have to do it from DesignShop? You can still do it from your machine, file, load design, and in fact, that's how I run all my equipment. I don't actually send it from DesignShop just because I got so many machines. It's easier just to do file, load design. Okay. So Meredith Juliet pointed out that pause will stop between, so if you're using one of the older versions that has pause instead of hold, pause will stop between every color change. Okay. Rather than hold. Okay, what else do we have? Got that one. I understand the importance of sewing words center out. How about 3 lines of text? Should I do the middle first? It really depends on what you're doing. Okay, so in general, if all I'm doing is text, I won't bother with that. I'll just sew the text. Um, if I'm sewing near a zipper, near a seam, near something that's already sewn out, I want to sew away from whatever's already been sewn, because if you sew towards it, what are you doing? You're pushing thread towards you're pushing the fabric towards it, where you're going to create potential issues for ripples and things like that. So I would not, generally I wouldn't worry about sewing at middle line, top line, bottom line. I would just focus on sewing away from things. So if you're sewing a hat, you sew it from bottom up. If you've sewed a design and now you're going to put text above it, well, you'd sew it from bottom up. If you're putting text below it, you go text from bottom down, things like that. Okay, or top down. Now, these questions, Andre, you had asked these in one of the groups, and honestly, I don't have the answers to these because it's a lot of, well, all right, let's just look at them. If you open the file again, these settings are gone every time, which is correct. So the settings you're asking about, like if you turn on a hoop, if you turn on 3D, and you save the file, next time you close it, reopen it, those setting, it doesn't show the hoop still up there. And that's correct. It's not saved within the file. The only things that are saved in the file itself are, if you right click on something, go to properties, look at view. These are the only things that are saved within the file as far as showing points and things like that. So we can add that as a feature list, add that to the feature list. What I was going to suggest is all of these, since I don't have a good answer for you as to why it works that way, I was going to send it over to the product owner and see if he can get you some answers. But for instance, you pointed out that this load issue it works with bars. The barcode, that's actually programmed into the barcode as part of it. So it's not actually, you can use it to automatically load or without. So I don't know why it is this way. Honestly, I talked to a few people and it all pointed to send it to the product owner. It might have to end up as a feature for a future update. Okay, and no, the frame's not passed. So I will send those. I've already sent them over, so hopefully I'll get an answer for you and I can post them out on where you asked the question. Okay, so those are all the questions I had sent in ahead of time. Let's see. I don't see any others on Facebook. Okay. Oh, wait, did I miss that one? Nope, I got that one. All right, well, I don't see any other questions. Did you guys have anything else new and exciting you wanted to learn, talk about, questions? No? All right. Well, I'll be back this is Friday, so next Thursday we'll be doing this again. And if you have a particular feature you want to see from V11, let me know. And I'm trying to do brief little examples in all these DS talks while answering questions, so we have something. Okay, Meredith, yeah, are you running V9 by chance of the software? Because that might be why, of the OS. Okay. All right. I don't have any other questions typed in or anywhere else, so I will talk to you guys next week. You guys have a fantastic weekend, and I will be back. See what trouble we can get into next Thursday. All right. Happy Friday. Have a good weekend.